Hey guys, this is Mitch with FinePoint CGI, and today we're going to talk about how to create a quest system inside of Godot. So this is kind of an expansion of our dialogue system where we're basically going to go ahead and build out a small quest system. So we're going to go through the process of saving and loading our quest objects. We're going to go ahead and make it so that our NPCs can house our quest objects and can send our quests to our player and have our player accept these quests. We're also going to make it so that when we make our first quest, which is a kill quest, where we're going to go and kill a slime, and then we're going to return back to the NPC, and we're going to turn that quest in, which in turn we'll get some XP points from. And finally, we're going to set up our interface so that way we can actually have our quest on our right-hand side, so that way we can keep track of what quests we have and keep track of what we need to do for each quest. So that's what I have in store for you guys today. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to right-click our RES folder, create a new folder, and call it quests. And that's going to allow us to have a little quest folder here. And then I'm going to open up my Visual Studio Code like this. And much like what we did earlier with our refactoring, is we're going to try to make this a scalable system that we have our IDs and things like that all just set up for us. So that way we can just make it work, if that makes sense. So what we'll do is first we'll go ahead and create our quests themselves. So we'll actually create our base class and then go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to quests here. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call it quest.cs. And inside of quest.cs, I'm going to say public abstract class quest. And I need to get rid of that. There we go. And if you guys remember, an abstract class allows you to inherit from this class and override some of its functionality. So it's kind of like an interface, but not quite like an interface. So it's not quite like that contract, but it kind of is, if that makes sense. And we're going to put some parameters in here. So what we're going to say is public int ID, public int reward XP. This will be useful when we do our upgrade system. Public bool if it's been accepted. Public bool if it's been completed. And then we also probably should have our finish dialogue, right? So when you finish that quest, what's the dialogue that that person's going to use? Now, this is not necessary, but it is something that we could have. So I'm going to put it in, and we might refactor it later, but at least right now, let's have this in. So we'll say public list NPC dialogue. Finish dialogue element. You'll notice that our little list is saying, hey, we don't have a reference. If you just click on this little light bulb and do system collections generic, there you go. It'll actually already add it for us, which is really nice. And from here, let's go ahead and save this. Let's create our first quest type. And our first quest type is going to be a like a kill quest or something like that. Like we have to go kill a slime or something, right? So we can just go ahead and click on the little plus icon here. Let's just say kill quest.cs. And I'm basically just going to go ahead and say public class kill quest. And that inherits from our quest. And that will allow us to pull back all the properties that our quest has. So it has an ID, reward XP, accepted, completed, and finished dialogue element. So what we can do now is we can also specify the things that this quest needs. So something like maybe our enemy ID, right? And our enemy ID is our unique ID that our enemy is going to have, so that way we can determine if they fulfilled the quest. If they kill the thing, we need to know what that thing is. So an ID is useful, right? It's like a unique key that every enemy's going to have, or at least every enemy type will have. And it'll help us with keeping track of how many you've killed and things like that. And then we'll say public int number to kill and public int number left to kill. Now, this is something that we might refactor in the future when we do our saved game states, but that's just something that we're going to have to look at. Now, next, we're going to need a constructor to construct our quest, and we'll say public kill quest, and I'm going to pass in our int ID, int reward XP, and I don't want a capital R, I want lowercase r. Our Boolean of whether or not they have accepted it. And I'm going to default this to false. So what this means, okay, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of defaulting a value in a constructor, but what that means is that we don't have to specify this, okay? If we don't specify this in our constructor, we just assume that it's false and we move on. So it's very useful. Bool completed. And we're going to make that equal to false as well. And then our list of our finished dialogue. So list of NPC dialogue like that. And we're going to default that to null. And then int enemy ID, and we're going to default that to 0. And we may want to make that a more permanent constructor object instead, but right now we'll just do that. And then int number to kill, and we're going to make that equal to 0 as well. So this constructor might seem like a lot, and that's because it kind of is, but it allows us to have a lot of flexibility here because we can come in and specify exactly what this quest has, but we also have enough defaults to make it easy. You know, all we really need to do is say, hey, here's our ID, here's our reward XP, you know, and then from there, everything else will just default to 0 if we want to. Now we need to allow our list here, so we'll go ahead and click that and do system collections generic. And then we'll go ahead and open and close our braces here. And now begins the long process of putting in our constructor stuff. So we'll say ID is equal to ID. Reward XP is equal to reward XP. Accepted is equal to accepted. Completed is equal to completed. Finished dialogue element is equal to finished dialogue. Enemy ID is equal to enemy ID. And number left to kill is equal to, oh, I'm sorry, it's number to kill, not number left to kill. There we go. There we go. So this is going to allow us to just quickly construct a kill quest if we need to, which is great. And it'll save us a lot of trouble in the future. So now that we have our quest and our kill quest, we need to have a quest manager, right? To handle all of our quests and to handle managing what's going on with our quests, right? So let's go over to our manager code area here, right click it, create a new file and go questmanager.cs. And let's go ahead and say public class quest manager. So the first thing that we need to do here is we need to create a list of our available quests. So let's go ahead and say public list, and we're going to go ahead and make that a quest, available quests. We're going to make that equal to a new list of quests. And now that I'm thinking about it, in our future, we're going to want to have an index of our quest. So we might want to make this a dictionary. I think we'll stick with this for right now, and we might go back and change it. And then we also need a list of our active quests. So we'll go ahead and say list active quests, and we're going to make that equal to a new list of active quests. And this will allow us to have both our active quests and, of course, our available quests. Now, we're going to need a constructor here so we can construct our quest manager, right? So we'll say public quest manager, and we don't really need anything special in there. Much like our previous managers, it's basically for us just to be able to test our code and save and load our quests and things like that. So what we can do now is we need to go ahead and allow us to add active quests and remove active quests, right? So some of the features that this thing's going to need to do is it's going to need to be able to load its own quests. It's going to need to be able to add quests and remove quests and update quests, right? So what we can do is we can say public void, we can scaffold this out basically. Add active quests. We'll pass in a quest to add, and we'll go ahead and say active quest dot add, and we're going to go ahead and add that quest to add. And the reason why we're abstracting this into a function versus doing what we're doing instead of just saying dot whatever right up here, like if we were to go and fetch the quest somewhere else, instead of us just going and doing that where we just directly adjust the list, if we do it here, it gives us a little bit more flexibility. So we'll do it here instead. And then we're going to do the same thing, public void remove active quest. And we're going to need to pass in a quest to remove, right? But this might not work. We'll see how this goes. The reason why I say this might not work is because we're going to have a list of active quests, and it's possible that we might not have a reference to that quest to remove it. So that's just something that we might have to keep in mind. We might need to take in an integer instead and then use that as an index, depending. So we'll burn that bridge when we get there. So we'll say active quests dot remove, and we'll just pass in that quest to remove. Now we need to be able to update our quest, and this one is a little bit more complicated, right? So when we are updating our quest, we need to be able to update all of our quests generically, right? And that's where things get super complicated, okay? When you need to do your stuff generically, that means you got to pass in a bunch of objects and generically update stuff and do some casting and things like that, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to scaffold this out. So public void update quest, and I'm just going to pass an object because I don't know what it could possibly be. And I'm just going to say obj, and we're going to leave it at that for right now. And then we need to be able to save and load our active quests, right? And our available quests as well. So we'll say public, actually, I think we're just going to do both. So public, void save quests, and we'll go ahead and just scaffold that out, and we're going to do the same thing, public void load quests. All right, so I know that that's a lot right here, but this was basically everything that we're probably going to need. Granted, that might change as we get into coding, but this is kind of my head math of what I think we're going to need. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to instantiate a quest and just build a quest, because you need to have a quest for us to work with. So that way we can kind of use the rest of our stuff. So I'm going to say kill quest is equal to a new kill quest, and it needs to have an ID. So 1 reward XP 1, let's say, and that space is going to kill me. So let's do that. Accepted. We don't necessarily need to have an accepted. So since I don't really care about accepted, but I do want to finish dialogue, what we can do is we could do what's called a named term or a named variable, right? And what we could say is finish dialog, and you'll see that we have this little colon here. And if we have this colon, that means that we are actually assigning that object, if that makes sense. So if we come in here, we can say new list NPC dialog, and then we can say new NPC dialog, which has a list of interface selection object, right? So new list int, and we'll go ahead and just pass in 1, comma, quote, thank you so much for defeating the enemy, exclamation point, right? And I know, like I said, this seems kind of crazy, but trust me, it's pretty simple once you understand how it works. And it looks like I might be missing interface selection object, display text. I need my int index and my list of dialogues. So we'll say comma 1, close that parenthesis there. Actually, I think I already have it closed. Yeah, I do. So we'll say comma, and I'm going to go ahead and do a named parameter, much like I did earlier. This is open, this is closed. So I think I can just do comma, and then we're going to do a named parameter again. So we'll say enemy ID colon 1, comma, number to kill colon 1. There we go. And that should basically do it. So that's basically us constructing a quest by itself. Now I know this seems like a lot to construct, but I promise, like it's actually not as bad as it seems. And then what we can do is we could say available quest.add, and we'll pass in our quest. There we go. So now we actually have our quest right here. Perfect, right? It has all the things that we need it to have. It has our final thing that the person's going to say. It has an index of like what they could, like what the response could possibly be, which in this case is 1, I believe. Let me see. Yeah, with the responsive interface selection objects, it's 1. And this is something that we're going to have to look at, I'm sure, in the future. But right now it goes off of the index that the NPC has. So it really depends on whatever you set the NPC to be. So that's something that we might need to look at. But this is basically it. Now that we have our quest added, let's go ahead and save it. So we'll go ahead and say save quests. Simple enough, right? Now, if we come down to our save, we need to actually set up our save quests, right? So how can we do that? Well, we basically already coded this in our NPC, right? So if we go out to our NPC, we scroll down, and actually we really don't need this anymore for our NPC. So let me just toggle line comment on that because we don't need it. And we'll go ahead and just grab our save NPC dialog and our load NPC dialog code. Let's just copy it and go to our quest manager. Let's paste that. Let's drag this up right here, the save NPC dialog. Paste it in here, and our load NPC dialog, let's paste that into here. And then let's just get rid of these guys so that they're completely gone. And then we'll just basically retrofit this. I know that it's not exactly ideal to duplicate your code, but I want that flexibility for the future if I need to change it. Okay. So first things first, JSON convert. We need to use newtonsoft.json. We need to go ahead and use our Godot system here for file. And NPC name doesn't exist. So instead we'll just say, get rid of all of this and call it AL, what did I call it? Available quests, AVAL. So AVAL quests.json. And we are going to serialize our ALV quests object, right? And we don't need, or we need to rename this. And we need to rename this because this doesn't make any sense. So let's go ahead and name it quest file. And I should go with lowercase q to kind of stick with, norms here. And then we'll go ahead and paste all of that. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. So we'll go ahead and paste that. And we have NPC interface and NPC dialog file. We'll change that to quest file. And then NPC interface needs to become our available quests, right? So available quests, because we're deserializing that data. And we need to load that data. So let's grab this and paste this in here. And there we go. Simple enough, right? And you'll see that we have one more issue right here. So we'll go ahead and change this to a list of quest. And that should do it. So now, if we instantiate this object, it's going to go ahead and save out our quests, which is perfect, right? So let's go to our game manager and add in a new controller here. So public static quest manager, and we'll just come down here and say quest manager is equal to a new quest manager. And there we go. Now we have global access to this quest manager, right? And if we come over to our Godot engine and we hit play, you'll see that it plays, and then we'll close it. We'll go to project, open project data folder, and you'll see that we have our AVAL quests. So if we come into Visual Studio Code and we drag this in and hit Control-Shift-P, whoops, did not want to toggle line comment, format our document, you'll see that we have our quest right here saved out for us. So if we want to add a quest, we literally can just duplicate this little bit of code here like this, comma, paste, and there we go. We have ourselves a second quest that we can have in our project, right? Which is great and simple enough, right? It's easy, okay? Now we may want to make this a little bit nicer, and I can show you guys how to do that in a little bit. Now, if we go back to our VS Code, which I keep forgetting because I open up the JSON and I immediately think that I'm in a different app. If we go back to our quest manager here, let's go ahead and test our load quest, right? So let's comment all this out. So Control P, toggle line comment, and instead of available quest add, I also need to comment that out because we don't want that. Instead, let's just load our quests. Load quests. And how I'm going to test this is by putting a breakpoint right here. Click on our little run and debug, and let's go ahead and run it, and let's see if this works. Oh, we've got an exception. That's not good. So let's see. Could not create an instance type of quest, type of instance or abstract cannot be instantiated. Path 0, enemy ID. Now, this is something that I've ran into in the past when it comes to loading abstract classes. And one of the things that I neglected to mention to you guys on purpose, so you guys could run into this, is that you need to give Newtonsoft a bit of information about your quest or about your object, right? You can't just deserialize an abstract object and have it just work, okay? So what we need to do is we need to do what's called JSON known types, okay? And I know I'm spending a lot of time on our saving and loading system, but this is something that we're gonna have to finish eventually. So we might as well just do it now instead of doing it later. And that way we don't have to come back to our quest manager other than to just finish up our update quests, right? So that's kind of my thought behind this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my terminal. I'm going to open up a terminal. We're going to use a plugin called JSON known types. And JSON known types is a very common package that a lot of people use when they use Newtonsoft because it allows you to just automatically serialize out data based off of its type instead. So we'll say .NET add package JSON known types. And you'll see that it's going to go ahead and download JSON known types for us. And now if we go to our quest, we can come up to the top of our quest and we can do what's called a flag. And this flag basically will say, hey, I'm going to do some converter stuff to make it so that your code is correct, if that makes sense. Hey, Editor Mitch here. So that flag that we're setting, all it does is it tells Newtonsoft what the object type is. It's saying, hey, this object is of this type. It's this class. So when you deserialize it, you can deserialize it properly. So if you have, multiple classes under one parent class, it will tell you which one of those classes that this object structure is. So that way Newtonsoft knows what to deserialize it as. So that's actually how it works. And you can technically do this without JSON known types. However, doing it with JSON known types, it just makes it so much easier. You can go and make a manual system that will tell Newtonsoft what it is. But using this method, it's basically a single header and that's it. But anyway, back to the video. So we'll say JSON converter type of JSON known types converter, and we'll pass in our quest. And what that's going to do is that's going to tell it to just work, right? So we'll just kind of do this, we'll do this. And then when we save, what it's going to do is it's going to go through our abstract class and create types based off of it. And this is something that saves so much trouble for how we can handle abstract classes. You have no idea. And I know a lot of people are like, well, you could create a custom type system, but this does it for me and it's really easy for me to use. So I like using it. So what we can do is we can go back to our quest manager, and instead of loading our quest here, let's go back to save quests and let's get that fixed. So we'll go ahead and do this. We'll uncomment this, and then we will open up Godot like so and play our game. And it'll run through, it'll run the game, we'll close it, and then we will go ahead and open up our VS Code here, and we'll go ahead and grab our available quests, drag it in, and if everything worked out correctly, we should have a type parameter. You'll see that we do. We have a type parameter right here. And what this type parameter is going to do is it's going to tell Newtonsoft how to deserialize our data. Right? So it's basically saying, hey, this is a kill quest, so therefore deserialize it in this way. This is how we expect it to deserialize, so please follow this object's design, if that makes sense. So now that we have that, let's close this. Let's go here, Control-Shift-P, and I formatted my document instead of toggling my line comment, and we'll go ahead and do load quests. So now, if we come over to Godot and we hit play, actually, I shouldn't have done that. I should have breakpointed. You'll see that it loaded, which is good. Let's try doing it through the editor or through the debugger here instead. So that way we can actually see everything work. So we'll go ahead and hit play. You'll see we hit our breakpoint, and you'll see that if I go to this quest manager, available quests, you can see that we have our kill quest right here. So our saving and loading system is done. Everything works, which is great, and it saves us a lot of time in the future. If we want to add quests, we can just duplicate it and then make some changes. Now it's time to hook up our quests, because if you don't hook up your quests, it's just not going to work, right? So what's our first step? Well, our first step is let's make our kill quests work. Okay. So the first thing our kill quest needs is it needs our enemies to have an ID. Okay. And we're going to need to refactor our entire enemy system eventually, because honestly, it's just not a great system yet. So we'll do that probably in the next video or maybe the video after that. But let's go to our slime enemy here, and let's go ahead and just add in an ID. So we'll just say public int ID, and we'll go ahead and make that equal to 1 for now. And that's his unique ID. So that's the unique ID that all slime enemies will have, is just 1. And that way, when we kill one of them, we can go, hey, my ID is 1. If anybody has a quest that's looking for a slime ID 1, then increment your quest, right? That's basically the idea behind this. So next, we should think about how we want our users to interact with our quests, right? So the only way for them to get a quest is to basically talk to an NPC, right? They need to get a quest from an NPC somehow, right? So we should probably attach a reference to that quest to our NPC dialog objects, right? So let's go to our NPC dialogs. Let's see, find it. Now that I've restructured everything, I got to hunt for everything. So we'll go to NPC dialog and we'll go ahead and add in a quest. So we'll say public quest, and we'll go down to our NPC dialog constructor and let's add our quest here. So we'll just kind of say comma quest is equal to null, and we'll basically just check to see if it's null. So we'll say if quest does not equal null, then quest is equal to quest. There we go. And that will allow us to house a reference to our quest. Simple enough, right? So from here, our NPC dialog has our quest. Now we need to be able to say whether or not they're going to accept that quest. And the only way to accept that quest would be through an interface selection object, right? Because that's the thing that pops up with the words for the user to click yes or no on, right? So that would be our interface selection object here. So we'll say public bool accept quest, okay? And we'll pass in our accept quest. And we'll say bool accept quest, and we're going to default that to false. And the reason why is because if the user is not going to accept a quest, we don't want them to necessarily, we don't want them to unintentionally accept a quest, right? So we'll say accept quest is equal to accept quest. There we go. And that will solve that problem. Let's take a look at our dialog manager and see what we can change there. So let's go to our dialog manager and let's go to where we process our dialogue. So I believe, if I remember correctly, and granted, my memory could be failing me. So let's go ahead and pull back our selected object and just do an interface selection object. And let's just call it selected object is equal to our selections dot interface selection index here. So let's pull that back. And actually, I think we're going to need this since it's our interface selection object here. So we'll pull that back. And then we can change this to selection object. Something like that, I'm thinking. Oh, whoops. This dot interface selection object. There we go. And that's going to go ahead and allow us just to have that as an object. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say if selection object dot accept quest, then our game manager dot quest manager dot active quest dot add, and then we'll need to pass in the current dialog object, right? But we don't have our current dialog object here, so we're going to need to create that. So let's go up to the top and let's add that. Let's say current dialog open, and let's see where we are setting that. Under write dialog, we have our NPC dialog, so let's set that here. So we'll say current dialog open is equal to dialog, and that will allow us to keep track of our current dialog. And then if we come up here, we can just go ahead and say add current dialog open dot quest. There, I think that will work. So what we're doing here, because I know that it's probably confusing, right? What we're doing here is we're saying, okay, go ahead and fetch our currently open dialog object. And if you guys remember, our currently open dialog object houses our current quest. It has our quest. And then we need to check if we accepted that quest, and if we did, then we need to add it to our active quests, right? We need to say, hey, this quest exists now and it's active for the user to use, if that makes sense. And we need to go ahead and come here when we do our write dialog, and we need to set our current dialog open, because this is the dialog that we have open on the screen at the time. And we really should start commenting our code, because our code base is getting large and difficult to manage. So I might just run through a comment pass, and maybe at the end, I'll just kind of show you guys the gist of it, and then I'll just run through on my own time and comment all this. So that way we understand what's going on a little bit better, because our code base is starting to get large. And when it gets large and there's no comments, it gets hard to use. So let me see. We can accept a quest now. That means that we should go to our NPCs quests and give him a quest. So we can come in here and just say quest is equal to a new kill quest, and then we can just pass in our basic new kill quest ID of 1, reward XP 1 accepted is false for right now. We can say enemy ID is our slime, and we can say our number to kill is 1. And that's going to allow us to pull back a quest here. Actually, I don't need this. I don't know why I did that. There we go. And that's going to pass us back a kill quest here. And what we can do from here is we can pass that in to our NPC dialog, help, I need you to help me, comma, quest, colon, and then our quest. So quest. There we go. And then we can say, I will help, and we'll set that to true. So comma, accept quest true, because I'm saying I will help you. So therefore I'm going to accept that quest, right? And from here, when they accept that quest, it should get added to the active quests. So if we go out to our dialog manager here, let me put a breakpoint on add active quests, and let me actually go back to my dialog manager. I think I directly referenced it instead, and I probably shouldn't do that. Yeah, I did. So what I'm going to do is quest manager dot add active quests, and I'm going to pass in that quest instead. That way I have a little bit more flexibility in the future. And what I'll do is I'll hit play in editor, and let's see what this does. And like I said, we're going to need to refactor some of this. I'm already not liking how it goes, and I can get rid of that because I don't need that anymore. Let's run over here. Let's talk to this guy. I will help. And let's look at our selection object. Accepted quest is false, even though it should be true. So that's not a good sign. This dot selections. Let's see. And I'm sorry, I know that the tutorial has been everywhere, but that's because there's adding in a system like this is complicated at best. So my apologies here. Let's see. Interface selection objects. Yep, dialogues. So that is pulling back the correct one, I think. Oh, I see what's going on. It's because I'm loading my NPC dialogue. Let me kill my load. Let me refresh this, and how much you want to bet it's going to work? It's 150% my fault. So let's come over here. Let's run. Let's talk to the guy. I will help. You'll see that it's going to break point, and we will step over, and it adds it to our active quest. Awesome. That's what we wanted. So if we come over here, you'll see that it's adding our quest that we built specifically for that quest. Cool. That's what we wanted. Awesome. So now that we have that, we have our adding working. We have our, basically, we have that working. So now we need to go ahead and set up our quest to be completed, right? When you complete a quest, we need to have a way to update our quest and complete that quest. So we have our ability to assign a quest. Now we need to complete a quest. So what we'll do is we'll come into update quest here, and we are going to basically make a quest updating system. And this system needs to be generic. And here's where things are going to get a little bit mucky. And I know that things are already kind of mucky. So yeah, if you guys don't understand, let me know and I'll be more than happy to explain it. So what we need to do is we need to say for each var item in active quests, and I believe it's a capital A, if item is a kill quest, then we need to go ahead and say update that kill quest, right? But how can we update our kill quest? Well, we're going to need to write an update function into our kill quest, right? So we'll come in here and we'll say public void update quest. We'll pass in an obj for our object. And we'll just pass in a generic object because we don't know what this object might possibly be. We just know it's going to be an object. So what we can say is we can say if obj is, and I'm just going to automatically say if it is a slime enemy, and we'll have to change this to something in the future, but right now I'm just going to say slime enemy. Slime enemy, slime is equal to obj as slime enemy, like this. And then we can say if slime.id is equal to the quest ID that we're trying to update, so our enemy ID, then we can go ahead and update our quest, right? And what we can do is we can say number left to kill minus equals 1. And we can say if number left to kill is less than or equal to 0, then we're going to want to go ahead and say completed is equal to true. And that's basically our entire update system. Now, one of the things that in the future, we're going to need to update multiple quests, right? So if we look at our quest manager right now, we're just have if item is kill quest, right? But really what we could do instead is we could just say item dot update, right? And then pass in our obj, right? Simple enough. But that's not going to work, right? Because we don't know what this could possibly be. It could be any type of quest. But the nice thing about abstract classes is that I can say public abstract void update, and I can take it an object obj. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to have a update here like this. And then I can just reference it from my quest manager. So I can just say item.update, right? So now if in the future I have a quest like a gathering quest, go fetch, 25 herbs or something, or go use a tutorial quest where I'm like, go use a health potion, right? I can just call item.update or whatever my quest is, quest.update, and pass in my generic object, and the quest itself is responsible to handling that data. And it'll become more apparent in the future when we actually do our second quest type, which will be like a gathering quest, right? You'll understand as soon as that kind of runs through. So what we'll do now is we have this working and we have our check to see if it's completed. So now we need to update our NPC interaction to check if the quest has been updated, if the quest has been finished, right? So let's go to our NPC. When we talk to our NPC needs to know, hey, it's been updated, right? This person's finished our quest. And if he hasn't finished our quest, then we're just going to default to our normal dialogue options. But if he has finished our quest, we could change what our response would be. So what we can say is list of quests, active quests, is equal to game manager dot quest manager dot active quests, and that'll just pull back our active quests, so that way we have a reference to that list of active quests. And we can say for each var item in our active quests, then we want to go ahead and check if item dot completed. Then we can go ahead and say interface manager dot dialog manager dot NPC dialog is equal to our item dot finish dialog element. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to pull back those finished dialog elements and then use them here for our NPC dialog if they're not null. And we'll probably need to do a check for that. And if we are talking to the guy, that means that we are turning in that quest. So let's go ahead and remove that quest from our game. So we'll say game manager dot quest manager dot remove active quest, and we need to pass in our quest to remove, so we'll pass in our item, and that's going to remove that quest from our active quest line. And now we can go ahead and return. And the reason why we want to return is that we don't want to overflow into here and mess up our interface selections, because it would just go back to our default selection. So now that we have that working, how can we set up our quests to update fully, right? So we have the ability to send our quests, right? We have our ability to update our quests, but we haven't actually called the update code. So how can we call our update code? Well, for right now, until we change it, we can just go into our slime enemy here and tell him to update our quest, because he's the only one that we're killing anyway for right now. So we'll go ahead and just do it here. So what we can do is we can say game manager dot quest manager dot update quest this, and we'll just pass in ourselves. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to update our quests. So if everything works, we should be good to go. So if I click on this to put a breakpoint here, so we can test this, make sure our ID is correct, make sure that our quest here, let's see, let's go to our quest manager and make sure that that's set up correctly. Okay, we have our update quest, so we'll be able to walk through this, but I'm going to put a breakpoint here so that way we can see it. And I'm going to also do our remove breakpoint that real quick. I don't need to worry about add active quests. We already know that that works. And I'm also going to go ahead and check our quests. Let me grab this because I believe our NPC has a reference to our quest, and that's something that we're going to have to refactor already, I can tell you. So let me look at our NPC. Let's see. We are passing in a very simple quest here. So let's grab our quest manager version of the quest instead. So let's go hunt that down real quick. Let's just grab this quest instead. Let's grab this whole thing and then go to our NPC and paste it over top of this one, and then just toggle line comment so that way we can have this quest instead. It's a little bit more robust than the one that we had there. So let's Control S that, and then let's go ahead and run this and see if it works. So we'll hit play. Oh no, we've got a failure. All right. Kill quest does not implement inherited abstract member quest update object. We forgot to override it, so OVR ride, and that should solve our problem. Let's refresh this and attempt again. And the reason why you have to override is an abstract class, you have to override your functions or else it thinks it's a new function. So now we have our game. We run over here. We talk to him. I will help you. You'll see that it breakpoints for us. We have accepted the quest, so it adds it to our active quests. Perfect. Thank you so much for your help. And you'll see that it's going to skip over this because it's no longer an added quest, right? So that's good. That's what we want. It comes down here. We fireball the little slime guy. We hit him. We update our quest. Let's see if it updates our quest. Oh, did it update our quest? Let's see. Kill quest. Accepted. It has been completed. Awesome. That's what we wanted. Perfect. So we run through. He's dead. We jump up here like so. And we talk to him. And he says that he's going to remove our active quest, which means that we must have successfully passed our quest. That's cool. So you'll see that it says, hey, our NPC dialogue, if item is completed, we did successfully complete. And then he's going to return. Thank you so much for defeating the enemy. Awesome. Now you'll see that we are reaccepting the quest because that was my fault. But that does exactly what we want, right? Now, our kill quest that we have in our NPC, I have a feeling that we're going to need to do a reference to this object instead, because if we do what we have now, right, we have our NPC dialogue is housing that reference, and we don't want that. Remember how we have that problem with normalization earlier, right? We want to make sure that our stuff is normalized properly. So what we can do is first, thank you so much for defeating the enemy, we should probably tell it to, instead of being 1, we should probably set it to something like, 3, right? Because then it's okay, or something like that. But that's a whole nother story. The crux of all this is that it actually works. We have a quest system. It operates, so that's cool. So what we can do now is we can basically just go into our NPC. Since everything seems to be working at this point, I just don't like how we're passing in our quest here. I think it'd be better if we just pass in an ID instead. So trying to think of the easiest way to handle this. So instead, go into our NPC dialog and change this from quest to int quest, and just say if quest does not equal 0, then quest is equal to quest. And let's change this from quest to int. So that way it holds an index instead. I think that might be a little easier. And we'll just have to do some adjustments on our code end to make that work. So if we come back to our NPC dialog object, or I should say our NPC, we can just come in here and say quest ID is 1, and then we'll just try to load from there instead. So we can just say quest is 1, and that will allow for that. And then from here, we could pull this out like this. We'll go ahead and see what's failure to build. So we'll take a look at it. Int quest is equal to null. Oh, int quest is equal to 0. That will work. And then let's build our project. Let's see if we have any build errors on the things that we need to refactor. So argument 1 could not be converted. Add active quest, current dialog option dot quest. So what we're going to need to do here, since we have a build error where we are adding our active quest, we instead, let's pull back our available quests by its ID instead. So what we can do is we can get a reference to our quest here. We can go game manager. So let's go game manager dot quest manager dot available quests. And we're going to do some link magic. And I like link, so you're going to see a lot of this. So dot where, and we're going to pass in our X pointer, and then we're going to say x.id is equal to our current dialog option dot quest. And what that's going to do is that's going to return back our quest. And we'll say dot first or default, and that will pass back our quest. Now what this does, and I think I explained this earlier in the tutorial, but this has probably been like, I don't know, maybe 2 hours at this point. the way this works is what it does is it iterates through our list and it does a search on these elements. It literally says for each element in this list, we're going to check its ID against our quest ID. And then we're going to return back our first, or default if we don't find anything. And default is basically just an empty object. So that should allow us to make our NPC stuff a little bit simpler on our end. So that way we don't have to have an actual quest inside of our NPC object. We can just have it here, if that makes sense. So now let's save our NPC dialog object so that way we can take a look at it. And let's also, so we'll come over here and we'll hit play and see if it builds and it runs. Awesome, it ran, so that's good news. So let's go ahead and take a look at the NPC Bob dialog here. And let's drop it in. And I know that I pretty much overwrote all my other NPC dialogue, so we know, but what can you do? So we'll hit Control-Shift-P, we'll format our document, and you'll see that we have a I will help, accept quest true, I can't help, accept quest false, accept quest false, and then we have our interface selection objects with their IDs, and if it has a quest attached, it is equal to 1, or it'll be equal to whatever the quest ID is. So if we cross-reference that with our available quests, and we hit format document here, you'll see that we have a quest ID of 1 and a quest ID of 1. So that's how we can keep track of which quest goes to who and what's going on and why, who has what and all of that happy jazz. It's just all between these couple JSON files. Now, I know that it seems like it's really complicated, but the reason for it is for flexibility. Now, if we wanted to get a little bit more technical and a little bit more crazy, we could also, abstract this out as well and keep it in here, and that might make it a little easier. But I think I'm just going to stick with this for right now. Now, the only downside so far that we have is we do have an index here. And that does point to our interface selections here for that NPC. So that's something that we're going to have to keep in mind and we might need to change in the future. But for right now, it does work. So let's go ahead and kill these guys. Let's go to our NPC and let's go ahead and comment this out. So we'll toggle our line comment. We'll get rid of our save. We'll go ahead and load our NPC to make sure that all of our loading code and linking code works. And then we can go ahead and I think at this point we can work on our interface side of things. Let's go to our quest manager and take a look at that real quick. In our save, we are not saving our current quests, so we should probably do that. So let's grab that real quick. So we'll just grab this and we'll just say serialize our active quests, and we'll just say string JSON var quest file is equal to a new file, and we'll just say our active quest.json, and we'll store it. That's fine, and that's fine. And then we'll just basically do the exact same thing down here. We're going to pull this, and we'll just say active quests. And we'll just get rid of this var here. We'll get rid of this string here. And that should do it for that. We're going to need to change this to active quests. And that should about do it. So now when the user saves and loads their quests, they can pull back their quests, their active and their available quests. So if I actually come over here and I save, so that way we don't break anything because we don't want to break anything. So let's go ahead and toggle our line comment and let's just open Godot, save, so that way we can save our stuff. That way it just creates our JSON files because I don't want to have to do that myself. you'll see that now we have a active quest and an available quest. And our active quest is empty because we don't have any active quests. And our available quests have our available quests in them, which is perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. So we'll toggle comment here and we'll go ahead and load quests. So that way it's just handled. Hey guys, Editor Mitch here. So something that I didn't catch in my original section here is we introduced a small bug in our code. So if we come and play our game here and we run over, we talk to Bob like we would expect, we get our quest, which you guys haven't quite gotten this interface element yet, but if we kill our slime and we kind of run back to Bob here and it says, hey, thank you so much for killing the enemy, right? That works perfectly fine. But something that we didn't quite think of is if we run up to Bob and we talk to Bob and then we kill our slime and we go up to Mochi here and we talk to him, you'll see it says, hey, thank you so much for killing our enemy. So that's a problem and that's something that we're going to have to fix. So let's go ahead and do that. So if we come into VS Code under our NPC right here, and we come down to our set NPC dialog here, and you see we just check if our item is completed. We don't actually check if our NPC houses that data. So if we talk to any NPC in the entirety of our project, we can return whatever quests we want to that NPC, which is not perfect, right? We want it so that we can, return it back to our NPC that gave us the quest, right? So what we can do is we can just come in here and say, hey, if our NPC interface dot NPC dialogues dot, and in this case, I'm going to use any, which is a link tool. And if you don't have access to this, just scroll up to the top and make sure you have using system.link, or you can, of course, click on the little light bulb here and it'll say, hey, using system.link. So we'll say any, and what any means is it's a keyword, unlike where returns an object or a list of objects where that condition is met. I'm just checking if any conditions of this is met, just return a true or false. So, you can ask questions like, hey, does this interface list contain these objects based on these parameters, if that makes sense. So you can say any x pointer and then say dot x dot quest is equal to item dot id, and that'll basically say, hey, if and that will say, hey, if NPC interface dot NPC dialogues has any quests that equal item.id, then run this code. So now we can do this, and then we can do this. There we go. So now if we go back to Godot and we attempt to run this, let's see if that fixes our little issue here. So we'll run over to Bob. We'll talk to Bob. Thank you so much for your help. And then we will come in here, kill our little quest, our little slime guy. We'll come up to Mochi, talk to Mochi. You'll see that Mochi does not say, hey, thank you for completing this quest. He says, hey, I need you to help me with my own quest, right? Like, I need you to help me. And I'm going to say I can't help him. And then we'll run over to Bob, talk to Bob. And you'll see that it says, thank you so much for defeating the enemy. But it does look like we have a small problem where it says Mochi instead of Bob. So that's something we're going to have to look at. So let's take a look at that real quick. My guess is we're not setting our dialog header. So let's copy that. And let's go ahead and paste that in here. And we might want to figure out a way to do this a little bit better. Probably by doing it up here. And then we can get rid of this and get rid of that. And that'll basically handle this. So now if we close this and we come back to Godot and we run it, let's see what we get. So if we talk to Mochi, Mochi's good, cool. If we talk to Bob, Bob is good. I will help Bob. I'm going to kill this slime. I'm going to come up here and I will talk to Mochi, who says, hey, I need you to help me. I can't help him. And then I'm going to talk to Bob, and Bob will say, thank you so much for defeating the enemy. So that basically just solves this problem. And it was something that I noticed during editing. So I'm glad to see that we fixed it. So anyway, let's go ahead and set up our interface system. Now from here, let's go ahead and give our user some XP for those quests. So if we come over to our player here, let me go find him. Player controller, let's scroll up to the top and give him a public float XP. And we're going to default that to 0. And let's go ahead and actually first, I'm just going to close others. So that way it just cleans this up quite a bit. We'll give myself some XP here. And then wherever we do our save or wherever we do our, let's see, wherever we do our remove active quest, let's say here, if quest to remove dot completed, then game manager dot player controller dot XP plus equals our quest to remove dot reward XP. And that'll just allow them to have that XP when they complete that quest. Now, we could test this if we want to, but I don't really know if it's necessary. We can test it later if we'd like. So next, what we need to do is we need to set it up so that our interface shows our quests. So let's go out to Godot here, and we'll go ahead and minimize these things. And we'll go ahead and go to our interface manager here, and we will go ahead. I believe we can just right click here, add in a child node. Let's add in a control node, and let's anchor this to the right side of the screen. So we'll go layout, right wide. We'll pull this out. We'll pull this down. We'll pull this up like this. And we're going to call this our quest manager. We'll go ahead and right click, add in a child node, and add in a VBox container here. And we'll go ahead and make that full rect. So it's the full size of that screen. And then we're going to right click, attach a child node, add in a control node. And we'll just call this quest element. And we're going to set some defaults here. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and grab our rect. We'll go ahead and grab our size and make this something like 60 maybe, or maybe 30. I think 30 will work. We'll go ahead and right click it, add in a child node, and let's add in a rich text label. And let's make that center top. And let's just call this quest name. And let's go ahead and make it actually top wide. That way we can actually have our quest name there. And we'll name this title. And then we'll also add in another child node, another rich text label, and call it description. And we'll say DSC for description. And we'll go ahead and make this bottom wide, and we'll pull this up. And then we'll just type description. So that's what our little quest thing is going to look like. So let's first have a header for this. So let's add in another rich text label, and let's drag this out and drag it up a tiny bit and just call it quests. Like that, simple enough. Let's give it a little space here. And let's go ahead and set up our quest manager so that it can actually take in people's input from our quest manager. So what we'll do is we're going to right click our quest manager, attach a script, and I think we actually called it I think all of our menu elements, I think, I could be wrong. Let me see. No, it's called Dialog Manager. So I guess we'll say Quest Interface Manager because I do love my managers. We'll attach a script and call it Quest Interface Manager. And we will go ahead and use this in a moment because we're going to have a lot that we're going to need to change here eventually because we're going to be adding and updating quest elements through this. But we need to also have elements for our quest element here as well, right? So we're going to right click this, attach a script and call it a quest element. And this basically will just set our quest elements. So the idea is our quest manager is going to instantiate our quest element and talk to it. And then it's going to use the quest element to populate these two values. So what we'll do is we'll first right click this. We're going to save branch as scene and we're going to call it a quest element. And then we're going to click on our script for that. We're going to come down here and say public void update title description. And we'll go ahead and say string title, comma, string description. And we're going to want a reference to those objects, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and create references to them. So public rich text label title, public rich text label description, and then we're going to say title is equal to get node, and I believe I named it title. Let me see. Right quick. Let's take a look at it. Title, yep, and description is DESC, so that works. So we'll say title as rich text label. And then we'll do the same thing. DESC is equal to get node DESC as rich text label. And then we'll come down here to our update where we pass in our title and our description. And we're just going to say title dot text is equal to title. And description is equal to description.text is equal to DSC. Okay. And basically all we're doing is we're just passing in our title and our description and we're just setting it. Now we could just use our manager to do that, but this is a little bit more abstracted and a little bit more user-friendly for future expandability, if that makes sense. It just makes things a little bit more clean for us versus having a manager that does everything. We have little sub things that do the things that we need it to do. So from here, let's go to our Quest Interface Manager here, and let's tell it what to do. So first, we need to get a pack scene, right? Because we have to instance that pack scene. So we got to instance those interface elements for each quest. We need to instance that, right? And then place it underneath our HBox container, right? So first, let's get a reference. So if I export, let's get a reference of our pack scene. So we'll say public packed scene quest element, and I think we'll call it quest interface element. And then we'll come down here and say public void add quest element, and we'll just pass in our quest. So that way we can get back all of our quest data. And we'll say quest element is equal to quest interface element dot instance as a quest element, like that. And that's going to allow us to instance our quest element, right, into existence. And it's going to allow us to have our quest element exist, right? So now we need to go ahead and get a reference to our HBox. So we'll say var quest list is equal to get node. And I believe we just called it, let me check. Go back to our scene, VBox container. So we should probably rename this to something like quest list. Let me grab that. We'll come back here and say quest list as VBox container. And then we'll say quest list dot add child element. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and say element dot set position to a new vector2 0, 0. And the reason why we're doing that is because when you instance an object, you're instancing it at the center point of the world. So you need to set its position to 0, 0 in relation to your child element, if that makes sense, or in the relations to its parent, I should say. So now we need to update our quest element. So what we can do is we can say element.update title and description, but we don't have a title or description for our quest, right? We never actually set a title or description. So what can we do about that? Well, we can come into our quest here and we can say public string title like that, and then public string description, and we can go with that for now. So then if we go to our interface manager here, we can say quest.title, comma, quest.description. There we go. So what that's going to do is that's going to instance our quest element. It's going to set our title and description, and it's going to put it underneath our HBox container and, flow it properly. So now what we can do is we need to go ahead and add a reference to this add quest element. So we're going to need to go to our quest manager and say add active quest. This is why I wanted to have an active quest. So we need to get a reference to our quest interface manager, but we don't actually have a reference to that. So what we can do is we can go into our interface manager and say public static quest manager. Whoops, not quest manager. It'd be quest interface manager. And we'll say quest interface manager. And we can set it right here. So quest interface manager is equal to get node. And I believe we called it quest interface manager because I am very creative with my names, as quest interface manager. There we go. And that will allow us to have a static reference to where our quest interface manager is. And honestly, I should probably just do capital Q and capital Q, just because that sticks with the naming convention that we've been trying to keep to. So let's do interface manager dot quest interface manager dot, and I believe the quest interface manager has a add quest element, so we should just be able to say dot add quest element, and we will pass in our quest. So we'll go ahead and pass in quest to add, and that should do it. So now if we go to Godot and we go ahead and hit play, in theory, this should work. And also we're going to need to adjust this a little bit because you can see that we have some overlapping, but if we talk to him, I will help, and we have a hard crash, so that's always a good sign. System null reference exception on add quest, and my guess is because I did not set my quest interface, so we need to go ahead and set that. So let's scroll down here, add in our quest element right here to set that up. You can see I just dragged it in from my inspector here. We'll go ahead and hit play. And we'll come back over here. We'll talk to this guy. I will help. Thank you so much. And you'll see that nothing seems to have happened. So what we'll do is, since we're loading our quest from our file here, what we'll do is we're going to go take a look at our quest JSON file, and let's see if it's that's blowing this up. So we'll go to our available quests. We'll take a look at it, Control-Shift-P to format our document, and then let's take a look at it. And that's pretty much what's wrong here. So we actually don't have a title or description here. So we'll go ahead and say, quote, title, colon, kill slimes, and we'll say description, kill one slime. There we go. And that should allow it to work as long as our quest, if we go find our quests, let me see. It is DESC, so as long as that matches, it should be good. So let's go back to Godot. Let's run this, and let's see if that fixes our problem. I have a feeling that that was what it was. So if we run this over here, hit enter, I will help, and there we go. Now we have our text here, which is perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. So now if we run down here and we kill a slime, you'll see that nothing's really changed, right? And if we come up here and we talk to him, thank you so much for defeating the enemy, and we hit enter and we get a crash. So let's see what our crash is. Null reference exception, add quest element. So it shouldn't be adding a quest element, first of all. So that's a problem. And my guess is it's whatever it is that we are using to set our quest. So if I come down here, I kill this guy. Thank you so much for defeating the enemy. I hit enter, and it's attempting to add a quest. I don't know if you guys caught that. So why is it attempting to add a quest? If we take a look at our JSON file here for Bob's dialogue, and we Control-Shift-P, and we format our document. Let's see. I will help, accept quest is true. Thank you so much. That's fine. If we take a look at our active quests, or our available quests, I should say, our selection object is 1. So if we look at our NPC, 1 is I will help you. So that's our problem right there. So if we just set this to 3, that should fix this little problem here. And then we should be good to go, at least on terms of quest adding and subtracting here. So let's come over here, enter, I will help, kill slime. Well, I probably shouldn't have done that because my slime's already dead. So let's go ahead and try that again, because I don't have a respawn system yet. So kill slime. He's dead. And that seems to have worked. Now we're not getting rid of our kill slime. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. So if we've already defeated our enemy and the quest has been completed, we need to remove our quest element, right? So what I'm going to do inside of our NPC, I'm going to go ahead and tell the quest itself to remove that item. So we should be able to go item dot and then have our quest element in here. So what I'm thinking is, let's go to our quest here and say public quest element, so that way it has a reference to that. And then we could just come in here and say item dot quest element dot queue free, and that'll allow us to remove its quest element. That way it's tied to the quest itself, and it makes it a little bit easier for us in the future. And then we can go ahead and assign our quest element when it gets instantiated. So we could go into our quest interface manager here and then just say quest element is equal to element, and that will allow us to have that. So in theory, if we run this now, it should work. So if we run over here, we talk to this guy, I will help. Thank you so much for helping. We're going to dodge this guy, kill him. We'll come up here. Thank you so much for defeating the enemy. And you'll see that the quest got removed, which is exactly what we wanted. We returned our quest to the guy and said we completed it. So that works. So now we got our little interface element here all figured out. It creates our quest and it actually sets it all as well. Now, what if we wanted to make this a little bit more dynamic? So instead of saying kill one slime, what if we wanted to say, hey, go and kill one slime, and then, on completion, we can go back to Bob, right? Well, what we could do is we could set up a completion description. So what we can do is we can go into our VS Code here, go back to our quest, and say public string completed description, or completed DESC, and then we can come into our available quests here. We drag this in here and we can say, quote, completed DESC, go back to Bob. And then if we go to our kill quest, so we have our quest here. If we go to our kill quest, which is right here, we could say, hey, if obj is slime enemy as slime enemy, if ID number of left to kill, if number of left to kill is that, then completed, right? What we could do is we could go update our quest manager and tell it that we've completed our quest and to show its interface element, right? So what we can do is we can say interface manager dot quest interface manager dot, and we're going to need to update our quest interface, right? But if we right click this and we go to its definition and we go to definition again here, we come down here, you can see we have add quest element, but we don't have update quest element, right? So we're going to have to add that. So let's do that real quick. So we can say public void update quest element. And what we can do is we can say quest element string title, comma, string description. And then what we can do is we can just say element dot update title DESC, and then we can just pass in our title and description. So we can say title, comma, DESC for description, and that'll just allow us to update our title and description. And instead of doing it here where we're just telling it to update our title and description, we could actually just pass this like this, and then just pass in our element like that, and that'll allow us to get a little bit more flexibility out of this system. And really, if we wanted to, we could just one-line this if we want to. So there's a way to one-line functions inside of C#, and the easiest way to do it is if you get rid of this and you do one of these numbers, it will just run this one thing, and that's it. So that's something that you might see in the industry, is people doing something like this, because it's a one-line function that does one thing. So that's just something to keep in mind. So if we go back to our kill quest, we can just say quest interface manager dot update quest element, and we got to pass in an element to update, which we can just say quest element, comma, title, comma, completed description, And that'll pretty much do it for us. So if we come back here and we hit play and we talk to Bob like we normally do, he says, hey, kill one slime. So we come over here, we kill a slime. You'll see that it says, go back to Bob right here. So it's updated our quest element to match with what we are looking for. So then when we return our quest, you'll see, thank you so much for defeating the enemy, and our quests have been turned in. Awesome. So at this point, I don't really want to drag this tutorial on for much longer. It's probably almost 3 hours long at this point. So we might be splitting this up. It just kind of depends. But in the next video, what we're going to do is we are going to create an item quest or maybe like a task quest. Let me know what you guys would like me to create in terms of a quest. But that is all I have for you guys today. So if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. Hey, if you dislike this video, go ahead and hit that dislike button because I am here to make content for you guys. This video, as with all of my videos, are viewer suggested. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments below and I'll be more than happy to add it to my Trello board. And hey, if you guys have any questions or comments, throw them in the comments below and I'll be more than happy to get with you about any subject, even if it's that I'm bad at coding and I don't know what I'm doing. But that is all I have for you guys today. So thank you so much again for watching and I will see you all next time. Thanks.